Harry told a room full of strangers in Melbourne that his infant son Archie would cry the moment Harry held him after a stressful day. He said the baby could detect his anxiety faster than he could detect it himself. And he delivered this story at a paid mental health panel, 12,000 miles from the child he was talking about. But here's what every body language analyst and every psychologist watching that clip immediately recognized. That is not a story about a father learning to be vulnerable. That is one of the oldest manipulation techniques in the book. So today we are covering how Harry used his son's distress as a textbook emotional manipulation at a paid event, Meghan collecting a reported $250,000 paycheck on MasterChef Australia while being introduced as royalty on a trip supposedly about veterans, the embarrassing crowd numbers that explain why every event on this tour happens behind locked doors, Harry admitting he felt disconnected from Archie at birth and needed to cleanse himself of his family before becoming a father, and the news that Montecito Manor is losing value while the sausages are on the other side of the planet spending money they do not have. So welcome back, my Royal Rogues. My name is Jesus Enrique Rosas. I'm the Royal Rogue, and let's get down to it. Let me explain why the Archie story is not what Harry thinks it is. During the Movember panel at Whitten Oval in Melbourne, Harry sat down with Dr. Zach Seidler and said this: "Every single time I went to work and when I came back, if I was stressed, the moment that I held Archie, he would start crying. He would notice it quicker than I could." Now, on the surface, the audience nods along. My father being honest about his struggles, very brave, very modern. But if you understand manipulation, and I have spent 20 years studying it, you recognize this move instantly. Harry just did 3 things in one sentence. First, he positioned himself as the victim of his own stress. Second, he used his child's emotional reaction as evidence of how deeply he suffers. And third, he delivered all of this at a ticketed event where people paid up to $2,400 to hear him say it. So, more than vulnerability, that is a performance of vulnerability designed to generate sympathy and revenue simultaneously. And here's what makes it worse. If this story is true, if baby Archie genuinely cried every time his stressed father held him, then Harry just told a room full of strangers the most intimate detail of his child's early emotional life. A 6-year-old boy who has no say in whether that story gets shared. A boy who will one day Google his own name and find out that his father told the world he used to cry in his arms, not in a therapist's office, not in a private journal, but at a branded mental health summit in front of cameras. And Harry also said he kept a diary throughout Meghan's pregnancy with Archie. He documented everything. And now, years later, that diary becomes material for panels, for keynotes, for paid speaking tours. The private moments of an infant's first weeks of life are being strip mined for content. The diary became the memoir became the panel discussion, and the panel became the speaking fee. And the word on the street is brutal. People are pointing out that Harry holds up personalized football jerseys with Archie and Lily printed on the back, accepts the crayon drawings of his family from 6-year-old fans, tells strangers about his baby's tears, but will not bring the actual children within 12,000 miles of the trip. The children are always referenced. They are never present. They're not people in the sausage's public life. They are intellectual property. Now, let me tell you what the Duchess of Sausages was doing while Harry was performing emotional growth in Melbourne. She was on a television set at the Melbourne Showgrounds filming a guest appearance on MasterChef Australia. And here's how Channel 10 introduced her. The presenter said, "All the way from sunny California, please welcome to MasterChef Australia, the Duchess of Sausages." Well, it's not sausages, but well. And then polling, added, "We've had MasterChef royalty in the kitchen before, but no one like this." The word royalty. They called her royalty. The woman who told Oprah the royal family nearly destroyed her mental health. The woman who has spent 6 years telling every camera that would point at her that she wanted nothing to do with the institution. That woman walked onto a cooking competition and let them announce her by the title she claims was her prison sentence, because the title is only oppressive when it does not come with a standing ovation and a day rate. And let's talk about that day rate. Reports indicate MasterChef paid approximately $250,000 for this appearance, $250,000 for one day, on a trip that was described to the public as being about veterans, mental health, and community engagement. Harry spent that same day laying rest at the Australian War Memorial in Canberra, honoring Lieutenant Irene Ada Singleton and meeting Indigenous veterans. He opened with a genuine "good day" and got a real laugh. And while he was standing in solemn silence, pretending to care at the pool of reflection, his wife was judging home cooks for a paycheck. So that split screen is the entire tour in one image. The veteran advocacy gets the morning slot. The real business happens in the afternoon. And someone in the sausages camp apparently thought the public would not notice that philanthropy and business trip means philanthropy provides the photo ops and business provides the money. And some commentators have noted that Meghan even timed her appearance conveniently after Catherine publicly said that she is a fan of MasterChef. Because, Meghan, the Duchess of Sausages has never met a room or a show that she did not try to make about herself. And the reason every single event on this tour happens behind a security perimeter inside a television studio or at a ticketed summit is because the sausages cannot draw a crowd. Reports from Melbourne describe roughly 100 people showing up to see Harry outside the Western Bulldogs venue. 100 in a city of 5 million. In 2018, when the Harkles last visited Australia, thousands packed the streets of Sydney. The Opera House forecourt was overflowing. That was a tour that convinced them they could leave the royal family and make it on their own. But 80 years later, they will not risk a single public walkabout. The official explanation, of course, is security concerns. A petition with over 46,000 signatures demanding no taxpayer money fund their protection. An Australian MP named David Limbrick publicly demanding they reimburse policing costs. But the real reason is simple. An empty sidewalk tells a story that no press release can undo. So instead, they move between controlled environments, hospitals where the crowd is curated, panels where the audience paid to be there, and cooking shows where the applause is literally directed by a floor manager. Bulldogs fans were actually locked out of their own training ground because Harry was inside doing his panel. Regular people blocked from their own club so the Duke of Sausages could discuss emotional availability behind a locked perimeter. And some commentators have revealed that the Harkles review every piece of footage from each day, assembling it into a curated package. Not for social media, but as a dossier. Sources say this footage is designed to prove that to the increasingly nervous leadership at Invictus Games International that the sausages remain relevant, and more importantly, to build a case for taxpayer-funded security for a return to the United Kingdom later this year. This is why the walkabouts were cancelled, not because the crowds would be hostile, because the crowds would be thin, and thin does not make it into a highlight reel. And so Harry also dropped another quote at the Movember panel that has been getting less attention but deserves more. He said he felt a sense of disconnection when Archie was born. He said he knew he had to cleanse himself of the past before he could be a proper father. His exact words, and I quote, "I knew that I had stuff from the past that I needed to deal with, and therefore prepare myself to basically cleanse myself of the past." Cleanse himself? Of what? Of the family that raised him? Of the grandmother whose 100th birthday the entire nation will commemorate in 6 days and whose celebration he will not attend? Of the father who, according to Harry's own timeline, last saw him 6 months ago for 54 minutes over tea at Clarence's house? Harry's standing on Australian soil telling strangers he had to purge his family from his system before he could safely hold a baby. And then in the same panel he says, "There's no judgment, there's no blame, there's no point of the finger." What? No blame from the man who made $20 million from a book that is nothing but blame. From the man who told Oprah his father stopped taking his calls. From the man who described in a clinical detail how King Charles failed to hug him, failed to validate his grief, failed to be the father Harry thought he deserved. That man wants you to believe the finger-pointing era is over, while charging $2,400 a ticket to point a finger one more time. And he also called his children, I don't know how to say this, upgrades. His exact words. "From my perspective, our kids are our upgrades." And then he said, That's not how I was taught. Whatever, the implication landed exactly where he aimed it. King Charles was not good enough. The royal family's parenting was not good enough. And Harry, the man whose charity is suing him, whose staff turnover makes a revolving door look stationary, is the improved model. And while the sausages are spending money across Australia, there is trouble brewing back at Montecito Manor. Real estate expert Mark Ashton Hunt reported that property values in their neighborhood declined during the first quarter of 2026. Fewer homes sold. Sale prices dropped. Only 5 properties exceeded $10 million in the entire quarter. So the sausages bought their estate for, what, $14.65 million? It is currently estimated at $29 million, but the market is moving in the wrong direction, and the Harkles are on the other side of the planet collecting paychecks from cooking shows and mental health panels to keep the lights on in a house that Meghan herself admitted they could barely afford when they bought it. Her exact words, "We didn't have jobs, so we're not going to come and see this house." They had no jobs. Do they have a job now? I don't know. They bought a $15 million estate, and now they are cosplaying as working royals across Australia to service the lifestyle. The trip is not about veterans. The trip is not about mental health. The trip is about money. And every hospital visit, every lane, every good day is set dressing for the commercial transactions happening in the background. So here's day 2 of the Australia tour through the lens. The curated footage will never show. Father monetizing his infant son's tears at a branded panel. A mother collecting a $250,000 TV paycheck while being announced as the royalty she claims to have escaped. Crowds so thin they had to lock the public out of a football ground. A man who says he does not blame his family while his entire income depends on blaming his family. And a $15 million house slowly losing value back in California. So the sausages told Australia this week was about service, but the only thing being served is the brand, and the bill is going to be the Australian taxpayer. But let me know what you think about this in the comments. My name is Jesus Enrique Rosas. I'm the Royal Rogue. Much love and bliss.